FaceTiming us good. Of course, it's too good.
I wanted to, yeah, all of them. So maybe everyone can't see. So it must just be that one. Okay. So I have a paper copy.
When it got loaded in,
I'll just load it up on here. The only thing that's missing is just the resolution number.
I can go and change it real quick because all it is just, it's probably a Word document that, and it needs to be a PDF. Resolution.
It's the very first one. Here.
The very last one's a,
Okay, it's 14.
But
the
yeah, we
very
can get
last one's a
started.
PowerPoint, so just, I don't know that cares. If nobody cares. It comes up and asks for, it's a PPTX.
Yep.
Gonna open,
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to
it's looking for PPTX.
call this meeting to order. And the first thing we're going to do is our tradition, is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please all stand. Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First item on the agenda is the second item, I should say, is the oath of office for Bill Curl. And Mr. Mayor will lead that.
Ready to go? Bill, if you would stand up. First of all, thank you so much for your willingness to serve. This is a very dynamic commission. Get a lot done. You can tell by the agenda today, this is where the action is in the city. And I think your background and knowledge are going to be very useful for the committee. Very welcoming to have you here. But we must swear you in before we allow you to do any of the work of the commission. So with that, I'll have you raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Bill Curl,
I, Bill Curl,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and that I will faithfully,
and will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and diligently
and diligently
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as a member of the Redevelopment Commission
as a member of the Redevelopment Commission
for the City of Warsaw, Indiana,
for the City of Warsaw, Indiana,
according to the law
according to the law
and the best of my ability.
and the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome, Bill.
You usually keep the speech about 12 minutes.
Yeah,
Just about
yeah.
your life story.
Don't listen to George. Rule number one.
Yeah.
Rule number one, there it is. You might end up being VP.
Rule number two, don't forget rule number one. Okay. We'll move along to the minutes of the meeting of the last meeting in February. Everyone should have had this in their board pack. Were there any additions, corrections, amendments?
I didn't see anything. Did you guys? No. I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from the March meeting as presented.
Mr. Clemens makes a motion to approve the minutes of the March meeting as presented.
I'll second.
Mike Glander seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Minutes are approved as presented. Right along. Claims.
Well, we have a
Mr.
few.
Jeremy, would you like to
I can
give
go
us a
through them
rundown
quickly.
on those, please?
So Cornerstone is doing the airport park master plan. Also, that claim is $5,160 for those services. Troy Reith, $400 was an appraisal for a property on Buffalo Street. Barnes and Thornburg, $518 for ongoing legal services concerning the Shell Building and Matthews. A&Z Engineering, $4,978 for engineering plans for 300 North and 200 West. UPS store, 4281 was for shipping the bond documents for the park project. Graycraft signs, $8,010.55 was for the wayfinding sign along US 30 that was destroyed. So that was for replacing that. We did get a portion of that paid for by insurance. That was reimbursed to us. $120 for me, that's my cell phone allowance. Home Title Group, $535, that was for title insurance for a property we acquired as part of the Anchorage Road project. Kaylee Co. is a nameplate for Bill. Wessler Engineering, $2,574.69 is for ongoing engineering services for the 2 lift stations that were, one under construction, one getting ready to start. Engineering Resources, $16,000 is for the contract we signed about a month and a half, 2 months ago for design on Sheldon Street. And then Visa, $192 is for our go-to meeting service for our virtual meetings, if and when we need them.
You had to put that on your personal visa?
Yeah, those are my personal, the city's Visa.
So the welcome sign we paid for and then we're reimbursed?
Portion of it, up, because we have a deductible that we had to pay.
Right.
So we got over that deductible, so I think it was a $5,000 deductible, so we got like $3,000 some dollars in insurance.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, any questions, discussion regarding these claims? Any? Anybody? Okay,
Hearing none, I'd make a motion to approve claims.
Mike makes a motion to approve the claims as presented, correct?
Second that.
And Mr. Clemens seconds that. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. Okay. Moving on to claims, the first item on the new business is,
Okay, hang on just a second. She, I think she tried to reload her.
I have it pulled up here if you
she's
guys
got it
want
on,
to use this
she's got it on the
too.
screen.
Okay, so
Yeah.
do we need to shut down or just try it?
Just try it.
Just try it,
If not,
okay.
there's a paper copy.
We had some technical difficulties on
Yeah,
the system.
Whitney, I'm still having trouble with mine. but
No,
yeah,
me too.
Just so you know.
Me too. We'll punt this time, but thank you.
Thanks for the
It's
paper
only the one
copies.
document.
Thanks for the paper copies. You get
Or
one?
these two?
I get one, but I have
Same
one here.
paper copy.
Okay,
If you need
thank
another.
you.
Yeah.
I don't.
Okay.
Okay,
So the next item on the agenda is resolution. We talked about this a little bit. Mentor Media is a new company that's occupying a portion of the Shell building as part of our incentive to them to locate in Warsaw. It's kind of two-prong. One prong will be approved by the Redevelopment Commission. The other half of that incentive would be approved by the City Council. And they will see their portion of the MOU at the next council meeting. So what you have before you is a resolution. That resolution, the first resolution, 0401, is approving more or less the actual form of the memorandum that has also been submitted in your packet attached to that resolution. That memorandum outlines the incentives that are offered to Mentor Media. There's two incentives that are being offered. One is, and this format is pretty much a carbon copy of what we did for Next Remedies before they were acquired by MedArtis. But if you'll remember correctly, we did an equipment purchase incentive for MedArtis. Well, this is similar in that we're doing an equipment purchase incentive for Mentor Media, and that will also be tagged with a incentive loan, a forgivable loan that the count will be presented to the council for their approval. It hasn't been approved yet, but that will be coupled with that forgivable loan that will be presented to the council in the amount of $250,000. So the total incentive package would be $500,000, $250,000 coming from redevelopment for equipment purchase, and $250,000 coming from the city council if they approve it for a low or a no interest loan that is forgivable, assuming they meet the employment that is outlined within this MOU. There are a couple of requirements on them, i.e. they have to occupy the building for a minimum of 5 years. They have to make the investment in machinery and equipment of roughly $4.5 million, hire approximately 25 employees over the next 5 years. And then at the back, it outlines the average hourly wages of those employees over that 5-year period. Assuming that they meet all of these requirements over the next 5 years, the equipment would be released. So we will have a lien on the equipment for the 5-year period. After that 5-year period is passed, we will forgive the lien, as will the loans be forgiven on a rolling yearly basis. But that'll be for the council to approve. But our portion of this agreement would be the $250,000 for equipment purchase. We'll have a lien on that equipment for 5 years, assuming they meet the requirements laid out within this MOU. We would release that lien at the end of the 5 years.
And that would take place immediately upon approval?
Yes.
Okay. Everybody understand that basically we're looking at a $500,000 incentive package, $250,000 for equipment that we're going to purchase for Mentor upfront, and then a $250,000 forgivable loan.
Yes.
To them, which would be written off as if they meet all the requirements of the 5-year period and the approximately 25 additional employees over that time frame, right?
Yes.
That 5-year.
A 5-year time frame.
And the wage range is $52,000 to $85,000 for those employees. Any questions?
Where are they gonna be located, Tech Park?
Yeah, so they
We
are
had to-
occupying a portion of the new shell building that's under construction now. That building is around 100,000 square feet. They'll be occupying about a third of it, or close to a third of it.
We had a groundbreaking a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
Yeah. Tim, the mayor, and myself all went to the groundbreaking and took a little tour of the shell and met their management team, but it was very impressive.
Yeah,
I thought.
at that point, it was just the shell, and you're right. It
Yeah.
was all that was a shell. But
Yeah, all over to go, but they were
it's,
here.
it's similar in construction to the other buildings that are out there, with poured concrete slab walls that slid into place. And actually, it's very similar, in talking to Dan Robinson, it's very similar to the Medtronic building, the way it was built. And that was in year 2000 was when we moved into that. So it's been up for 23 years and still looks pretty good. So I can verify that. That's as much as I can verify. But it's served us well.
And what's happened since the groundbreaking?
In terms
Have
of,
they moved, they have any employees yet, or they moved anything?
I think they are setting up kind of the starting employees that will be doing all the hiring and the processing and all that. But obviously, they won't be able to do anything until they can occupy the building.
Right.
The equipment purchase is probably more important at this point because these pieces of equipment take 6 months to make, and in order for them to get them, so they need to get the equipment ordered now, so that 6 months from now, when they're in the building, the equipment will be coming. The loan is probably a little less important up front because it's going to take them time to occupy that building yet, from the construction and the setup period. So a little bit more time on the loan portion that the council will review, but this is a little bit more important because they have to order the equipment. In order to order the equipment, you got to put money down, so forth. So when it's all said and done, we'll get invoiced. If you were to approve the following 3 resolutions, we'll get invoiced directly from that company. So we are not paying Mentor Media. I think that we kind of talked about this a little bit with the Next Remedy deal. We're not giving money to Next Remedy. We're giving money to the company that's supplying the equipment. We are buying that equipment. We'll have a lien on that equipment for 5 years. We'll dispose of that equipment to them for $1. That's this whole process. There's 3 resolutions here. And we'll have that lien. If they were failed to meet that, we would be able to take the equipment back.
Up to 25 employees by the end of the decade, that's the goal.
Yep.
$4.6 million investment.
Just in personal property.
Over the 5 year.
That's not the building. The building's a 100,000 square foot building. It's about $12 million worth
Good
of
point.
investment.
Okay, so 4.6 and 50, on the development loan, it's up to 50,000 a year for 5 years.
Yeah, and I will present that to the council at their
Right.
next council meeting.
250 goes to the people supplying the equipment.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Upon receipt of
Yeah.
the invoice.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Okay, any other questions? We have approved this memorandum before we can get into the resolution.
The next 2, yeah. So this is approving the MOU. The next 2 will be approving the purchasing, acquisition of the equipment, and then the disposition of the equipment.
All in one time.
Yeah.
All right.
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding.
Mr. Gross makes a motion to approve the memorandum 2023-0401
Thank you.
as
Yes.
presented, correct?
Yes, it's a resolution. My
Yes.
fault. Thank you
Yes.
for that point of order.
That's quite all right. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Clemens seconds that. So any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, very good. And we'll move along here to the next one. The next one is the Economic Development Memorandum of Understanding for the,
Well, that was attached, so the MOU was attached to that resolution. So the next resolution,
that
I
was
have them
attached.
separate because you're
We-
approving
yeah.
the resolution, which is the order of the MOU. So we kind of went through both of those. So the second one would be the 2023-0402.
okay.
And this is the acquisition or purchasing of that special equipment. And it lays out kind of a definition of the equipment that we're purchasing, the company we're purchasing it from, and the dollar amount that we are shall not exceed, which is the $250,000. And they shall maintain their, it just kind of goes through the things we talked about, maintain that equipment for the next 5 years. So this is just the acquisition resolution authorizing the Redevelopment Commission to acquire those pieces of property that will be disposed to them.
Up to, not to exceed.
Not to exceed $250,000.
$250,000.
Yep.
Appears to be a German piece of equipment. Unless that was,
Yeah, their address was Switzerland, but yeah.
okay, close. Very close. Okay.
Could be a German company in
So that could
Switzerland.
be, who knows? But there'd be, for pieces of equipment like that, it's a
Yeah, it kind
fairly
of-
healthy shipping problem as well, because it's large pieces of equipment.
Yeah, they're vacuum packaging systems is what they are.
So, any questions, concerns, comments? Hearing none?
I move to approve resolution 2023-0402.
Mr. Gross makes a motion to approve resolution 2023-0402 as presented. Correct.
I'll second.
And Mr. Clondaris makes a motion to second that. Any further discussion, questions? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, nay? Resolution 2023-0402 passes unanimously.
The final resolution, 2023-0403, is the end of this process, which would be the disposition of the property that we would be acquiring. And this lays out the process in which we'll be disposing of that property, which is through the state statute, and allows us to more or less offer it for bid, which in order to bid on it, you have to be hiring 25 people for X amount of wages. So no one's going to bid on it, and then after that advertisement period closes, then we can dispose of the property to Mentor Media for $1.
Okay, any questions regarding that?
It's a complicated deal.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Very similar to what we did
Yeah.
in Extremity.
Yeah, this is pretty much a carbon copy of what we did for an extremity.
I'll make a motion to accept as presented.
Okay,
I'll second that.
Mr. Mike makes a motion to approve resolution 2023-0403 as presented. Mr. Clemens seconds that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Resolution 2023-0403 is unanimously approved. Okay. And next, we have
Jim, can I ask a question?
Mr. Mayor. Yes, you may.
Voted on resolution 2023-0401. Was there a separate vote on the Mentor Media MOU?
The MOU
Was attached to the
is attached to
resolution
the resolution, yeah.
01.
I think that's because of we couldn't see it. That's the new one that was
Yeah.
put on there, yeah.
Well, and I put them on separate,
Well, I wanted her to put them on separate because I wanted to go through the MOU with you. But the resolution you approved is authorizing the execution of the MOU.
Of the MOU,
Yeah.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good question. Okay. Next on the agenda is the financial report presentation. The formal one.
Yes, I do have the presentation. Let me pull it up.
3,000 pages of it.
Well, I won't. So as part of our requirements for the state, we have to give a TIF impact presentation or report to all the taxing units within the TIF district area every year. So your financial report that you have is what's required for us to submit to the state by April 15th or 16th of this year, as well as this presentation meets our requirements to present to the taxing agencies our TIF impact. All the taxing agencies were invited to the meeting today. Apparently one decided to show up. So they were all sent out a mail saying that today we'll present. So that's what I'm going to do.
Was there anything brought up at the meeting that we should be concerned with?
Which meeting?
The meeting today that you had.
No, this is the meeting.
Oh,
This is
I
the
see.
advertised,
This
our
is the
advertised
advertised
public
meeting
presentation
for the
of
organizations.
the TIF impact
Gotcha.
per the state statute.
And
The report that you have is what gets sent
do the,
to the state. I will send a copy of this report to any taxing agency that's requested. It's not required that we send it, but it is required that we report that to the state. So this same information is on the state's portal, so you can get on the portal, the DLGF, and you can view all the TIF documentation for 2022. It includes outstanding debt we have, balances, expenditures, categorical expenditures, each fund. So all that information gets uploaded to the state's DLGF website, and anybody can get on and view that. This report is more or less for you guys, and I will send it out to, I know I sent it to the school district, and anybody else that requested I would send it as well.
Has there been any amendments and changes to
No.
this since?
No
we
one had
reviewed it last
said
month?
anything, so that the draft that I gave you last month has now become the final
Final.
report.
Very good. Okay.
So as I've done in the past, I kind of just give a brief description of TIF. Tax increment financing districts are obviously a way to capture incremental growth that comes from development that we incentivize, much like the technology park is a prime example. We incentivize that growth through capturing of those taxes that are created as new projects are developed. So whenever we start a TIF district, you would have the base AV, which is a current assessed value of that district. And then you have the incremental AV, which is what increases from the base over the years of the life of that TIF. And all TIF districts expire. Originally, the original TIF districts did not expire, but about, 8 years ago now, the state changed that. So our central TIF, or downtown TIF, does have an expiration of 2040 now, whereas in the past it did not. So the base AV stays, and the existing taxing agencies continue to collect those taxes off that base. And the TIF that we collect is the incremental value increase over the next 20, 25 years, or 30 years in some cases, depending on the life of that TIF district.
Which we use for things like we just approved.
We use for investment in infrastructure, incentives for new development, yeah.
Yep.
So when we talk about what is that impact, obviously there's a couple of different potential impacts. Taxes collected on the tax rate would be a potential impact or primary impact. Secondary impacts would be jobs created, commercial and residential growth, income, sales, payroll taxes that we don't collect as part of TIF. This graph just gives you an idea of what the net AV within the city versus the TIF real estate AV. And something I want to point out here is the AV, so our growth is pretty regular, but you can see there are some spikes in growth in the net AV. And that's really just a product of what we do in the TIF is not in a vacuum. So as we grow areas, other areas grow too that are not TIF and are not collected by us. So the areas around our TIF districts that we're putting a lot of money in are also growing, which are leading in increases in taxes collected and investment in the community. So TIF isn't a vacuum. So what we do within the TIF does affect and have an effect on areas outside of the TIF. TIF as a percentage of the total AV, you can see the TIF is growing, so which means the total AV is coming down as the TIF would grow, but it's stayed pretty consistent over the last 5 years. So it's about 14% of the total AV is TIF collected. So there's kind of three thought processes in terms of how the TIF could impact. If you don't have TIF and you don't make any development, then there's no taxes generated. That's kind of the flat basis. So no investment made, nothing happens, no taxes are generated. But the value of the TIF district could also have other factors, including outside investment that occurs outside of a TIF district. And then the TIF margin has an impact on taxing agencies. So it's not a direct dollar to dollar, which we'll get into in a little bit. So just stopping TIF doesn't mean, oh, I'm going to collect all that money. That's not the way it works. So the prime example of the no TIF, no development is when we are not successful, and this is going to change pretty dramatically here in the next 2 or 3 years, because some of the developments we're doing in that interurban TIF, but if you look at what the interurban TIF has generated growth-wise versus the city's total AV, when we're not successful in a TIF, the rest of the city grows a lot faster than that TIF. So TIFs aren't cash cows. You have to put a lot of money into them to get the growth that you need. We haven't been really successful in the Winona Urban up until the last 2 or 3 years. Now we've got a couple of developments. We've invested in the marketplace. We've invested in the Arnold property, and hopefully in the next month we'll have a development agreement before you on the Gacky property. So those investments are going to dramatically change what these numbers look like right now, but just having a TIF does not make it successful and create new money. You have to put a lot of work into those TIF areas to generate that money. So if we look at the investments we've made in the TIF districts, and then you take out those investments, it gives you an idea of what would happen. So an example being the increment of the central TIF for 2022 was around a little over 200,000. When you subtract the original investment in that TIF, which was the ZB headquarters, you're down to around 50,000 maybe. And then when you take out the ZB hotel, which is not even in the TIF district, you'd have negative numbers. So that initial investment that we made within the central TIF is predicated on those projects we're investing in. You take those projects away, you take TIF away, that money's not there. And that's really what this is trying to show is you take away the capital projects we invest, which comes from TIF, and there's no money there. Northern TIF districts, same kind of thing. You take away all of the economic development projects we invested in, you go from a little over $3 million collected to around 1.5 million. You factor in the different economic development taxes that we create, income taxes, all those things that we don't collect, and that value continues to shrink. So by investing in those new businesses, by investing in that job creation, we're creating a lot of different taxes that are collected by other agencies that is not being collected by TIF. We've not really been successful in Winona interurbans. I can't really give you any projects now. This slide will change next year, hopefully with the Arnold investment and the, keep in mind this is all 2022 money. We report in arrear, so next year would be 2023 money. The residential TIFs are still in their infancy, so we've got a couple of projects that we're working on. We got the southern lift station that we're working on. We're working on 2 northern residential TIF projects. One is a sanitary extension and the other is a stormwater project, so hopefully we'll see some growth in those 2 districts. But for right now, there's not much going on. They've only been around since 2019. So when we look at the TIF impact, you got to look at your maximum levy and your certified levy. So when we look at the different agencies, and I put on here because these are the ones that are probably the most impacted, but I think I have another slide. But so if you look at the Warsaw Community Schools certified levy versus their maximum levy for 2022 and 2023, there's not much difference there. If you look at the library's max levy and certified levy, there's not a lot of difference there either. So if there was no TIF or we were to pass through TIF, it's not like they're going to get, if we pass through $3 million, they don't get $3 million because they have a maximum levy that they can collect. If you're already at your max levy, you're not going to collect anymore, or you're only going to collect, or potential to collect what that difference is. The county is not really near their max levy, so there is a gap between what they collect. So if we were to pass through TIF, it wouldn't really do the county any good either because they're not even collecting to their max levy. So you can see this just shows the 2022-2023 levy gap for different entities. So for the Warsaw Community Schools, in 2022 it was under $2,000. In 2023, it was a little over a $3,000 gap. So if we were to pass through TIF, that's what they could collect. In 2022, they would have been able to collect, I think it was like $1,000. In 2023, they would be able to collect around $3,000. That was the difference between their max levy and their certified levy. The library is kind of in the same boat, a little less, so a little less money, under $2,000 for both years. Prairie Township was the next one that had a little bit of a larger gap. There was about $10,000 where they were under their max levy. The different townships, Wayne Townships, pretty much not collecting up to their levies. Prairie and then the Solid Waste District, as shown on here too. None of these entities, the county, Wayne Township, Plain Township, or the Solid Waste District, none of them are collecting anywhere near their max levies. So passing through TIF would just mean less money for us to spend. They would not collect any more money. They're not even collecting what they can collect now. So basically, it just wouldn't be collected. And this kind of goes through, I talked a little bit about it, but so the total levy gap for 2022 was right around $3,000. So if we would pass through TIF, that's what could potentially been gained from the 3 TIF districts that are at their max or close to their max levy, or the tax districts. So the Prairie Township, your Warsaw Library, and your school in 2022 combined would have collected, I think, just over $3,000. Or sorry, right there, $2,754. So if we were to pass through TIF, the max that would have been collected in 2022 would have been $2,754. So the city, and I'm going to show another slide here in a second. In 2023, Prairie Township wasn't collecting all the way up to their max levy, so it raised up around $13,000. So the lost revenue for the city would have been, in 2022, $3.8 million if we didn't have TIF, and in 2023, almost $3.9 million in lost revenue. That's revenue that wouldn't have been collected. And this just shows the total gap, the increment, and the total levy gap, and the lost revenue. So you can see between the increment and the levy gap, if we didn't have TIF districts, we're not talking about siphoning money off of taxing agencies, because that total levy gap shows you that it's basically minute in terms of the total gap. If we were to get rid of all of our TIF districts or pass through all the money, no entity would be cashing in on that money. It would literally just not be collected and would result in a lost revenue for the city. The true impact to me is a combination of different things. It's that max levy, it's the jobs, it's the investments we make, and it's the growth in the community. So to sit here and say I can tell you exactly what the impact is, I can tell you what the impact might be on the school system in terms of a dollar amount, but what I can't tell you is how many new homes we're going to build and what that does to the school in terms of adding kids to the school. Same thing with the library. I can tell you how much money they would lose, but I can't tell you how many patrons they would gain by the number of houses and the jobs we create. All of that is really hard to gauge, but we do know it all has an impact. So the impact is much greater than what the dollars show. So while someone may lose $500 in tax revenue between their certified and their max levy, we may be giving them a lot more in terms of membership or children in school or new jobs created, income taxes. All of that factors into the investments that we're making within these TIF districts. And with that, that's kind of my presentation, but I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Jeremy, related to one of the first slides that you had, the original assessed value and then the taxes on it, The other taxing units, they still collect on the original amount?
Yes.
It's, so I think, so I can tell a taxpayer, if it's $1 that we were collecting with no development, all right? And then we go from 1 to 10, that $9 is TIF related.
Yep.
It isn't like we're taking it, what you could have got, you still are getting what you would have received if we did nothing. Am I saying that layman's word correctly?
Yes, and on top of that, that dollar's not stagnant either. So,
Another good point.
you know, a lot of people think, oh, well, that dollar today is now $5. Well, that's all factored in.
Okay.
So it's not like yesterday's dollar was only $1. So, and what I mean by that is, so let's say I have a house that's and we created TIF district in 2015, and I bought a house for 150, and then I sold that house for 250, and now it's assessed at 250 in 2025. We don't gain that. We didn't gain $100,000. It has to be new value added. So it's not just the dollar growth, you know, of something between inflation or whatever you want to call it. That value of growth doesn't just we're not just collecting that. It's all factored in. The only way we collect anything is if you add on. I add a bathroom or I add, you know, a second story onto my house, then we collect that. Or as a business, I have 10,000 square feet and I add another 10,000, that's what we collect. So we have to create the growth to collect the growth.
So there's a return on that investment for the TIF dollars that are invested in this community.
Yes. And if we do a really good job, 20 years from now, everybody gets the benefit.
Because it goes off and it goes back to all
It goes
taxing
back to
units.
all the taxing units, yeah.
Okay.
Any additional questions? I know this is pretty complicated, and when you haven't been exposed to this, we have a couple of new members here tonight, and I know it's difficult to digest, but I want you to know that we will attempt to answer any of your questions either now or after the session, and we'll make time to sit down with you and go through the calculations, because it does get a little complicated, but on the other hand, it's a good way to expand the growth potential of this community, and therefore the overall amount of dollars collected on property taxes, and eventually, and then there's what we call the ripple effect, is additional people, you know, sales taxes and income taxes and so forth for the state of Indiana. So we benefit in multiple ways with this new investments in the community.
I'd like to say, I think that the investment in the community is great, and I love to see it. I love the structure of the TIF. And I know there's been conversations between school board and Warsaw Schools and the Redevelopment Committee concerning TIFs. You know, simple understanding of how our finances work is new students are wonderful. They create revenue for our schools, but it's specifically for operational costs, not for brick and mortar. Assessed value and that taxation is where we get our funds for growth and expansion of schools. So obviously with the additional students, it's wonderful. We get great. We want to see our community grow, but it also impacts our schools, which is why we're involved in this process. And I look forward to the growth and everything else. And as I've said before, you know, hopefully not that I'm excited about the idea, but hopefully we grow enough citizens that we have to run a referendum because we have to expand our schools. It's a great opportunity. But I do have one question going through the report on the Southern Residential TIF District.
Yep.
One of the statements in there was maybe included, which is some additional potential, let me make sure I get the statement right. Other projects that may be included within the area determined by Redevelopment Commission includes expansion of public education facilities, et cetera. I know as a board, we're kind of curious too as what might be on your radar if those revenues happen to exist and that potential is there. What would be some of the things that you guys would be interested in on our end? And then what would be the trigger for spending that or making those investments?
Yeah, so.
26 of the report, or 23, sorry,
So,
23 of the report, I believe?
23.
Yeah, so I've had a lot of conversation with Dr. Hoffert and some of the other members. And so really what we're talking about and what I've told them that the Redevelopment Commission in the city wants to see is we're not opposed to making investment into the school. But that investment has to be related to our ability to grow. And so I've shared this with them, so when I make
And we've
that
had this
statement,
conversation
yeah.
too.
So when I make that statement, if it's of benefit to the community as a whole, then that's when we will make those types of investment. For example, if it was a playground that was accessible by the community as a whole, then I could see us in making those types of investment improvements, added playground equipment, added sports fields, what have you. If it's an expansion of the school that benefits the community as a whole, I could see us participating to a certain extent in those types of. What I can't quantify or say that the city would benefit is replacing windows or replacing a gym floor, because that doesn't do anything to grow houses or people in the community. So when we're talking about maintenance, we're probably not going to be a participant in maintenance. If we're talking about growth, then I think that's where we participate.
Okay, great. No, I was just curious what the answer on that was. I appreciate it.
Brad, that's a good question. We've had a lot of these discussions with Dr. Hoffert, and we've had great discussions. We've gone back historically and looked what the city's invested in safety and safe routes to school, for lack of a better term.
Right.
Transportation, getting streets, getting side paths, getting signals. And there's not really anything that triggers it that's any different, that triggers the progress and the need for those types of infrastructure as things grow and as things come along. You know, examples are 300 North. We spent a significant amount of money out there with a real wide trail getting from the residential area over there by 15 out to Madison School. We've spent a pretty significant amount of money on the road out at Eisenhower, Husky, was that Eisenhower Trail, or when we widened the road out there?
Yeah, at Eisenhower Drive or Dwight Drive, sorry.
Dwight Drive. I know we've spent a significant amount of money on the Husky Trail project. All of those projects, I think, are, again, safety projects. Getting kids to school safe is so important to us. We're involved with the Traffic Commission. You all are represented on the Traffic Commission. When those issues come up, obviously, it's not on our radar. It's in our DNA, if you will, when we're doing transportation projects, that those are important things. And I think we had a really good discussion about that. But it's not that, school needs a certain project there. It's that the community needs to get those kids to school safely. And as we expand, you know, we have traffic situations change, traffic patterns change, and it just becomes part of what we do as a city to ensure that there's a safety component to getting kids to school.
No, I greatly appreciate that. Appreciate the collaboration with us, by all means. Don't misunderstand my question.
No, not at all. I really understand after we've had our discussion. I understand both sides of the argument, and they're both legitimate, but I think at the end of the day, in this community especially, we utilize TIF in a way that creates growth, and that money gets plowed back into the community. So, yeah, we're lucky that we've got the relationship we've got with Warsaw Schools, and it's always good to stand up here and talk about how this works. And when there's been questions, I'm not afraid to pick up the phone, nor is Dr. Hoffert, and we sit down and we have very good discussions. So,
But the fact is, it works.
Yes,
It works very well. So, Jeremy, thank you.
appreciate it. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions?
Just, we say it every year, but great job of putting this financial report together. We appreciate it. Please.
My pleasure.
You said that with a straight face.
I did. It only takes like 3 months now.
We need to
And then we get to start all over again.
We
Yeah.
need to approve that, did we?
Nope.
Just accept?
Just it's been presented to you and to the public. That's the statute. You don't have to approve anything.
Okay. Just want to clarify that. Make sure. Okay.
I'd like to say it's a great report, and I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed going through it. I learned a lot. Thanks, Jeremy.
It's a lot of information in there.
Yes, sir. it is.
Really. What this commission does shows a lot of activity, and it covers all, and remember, this is last year's
Yeah.
information, so.
But it's a useful
That's it.
tool for our upcoming budgets and
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 months.
Yeah, very useful. Okay. All right, thank you for that. I appreciate all the detail. In fact, have a copy of your slides available to the commission members?
Yeah, I will, so they're animated, so the only problem is I can send you copies, but if you don't have PowerPoint, then you're only gonna get the
Gotcha.
unanimated.
Yeah. Yeah,
So if I PDF it, maybe I should think about not animating it, but it makes it easier when you're doing one slide, you
yeah.
can show multiple
Yeah.
rather than.
yeah.
But yeah, I can give you the slides in PowerPoint. As long as you have PowerPoint, you'll be able to use them. If I send them to you in PDF, you're gonna get the language, but you're only gonna get one of the
Right.
pictures or the map or the graphs.
Yeah. Well, send the PDF and we'll take our chance.
Okay, can do.
Thank you. Okay. So that's
So the only other thing I have on the agenda, it's not really on the agenda, but as a discussion item, I handed out some more retail strategies information. We had met with retail strategies, myself, Tim, and Mike, and the mayor, kind of did an interview, and I'll leave it up to them to kind of report back their conversation with retail strategies. My intent would be for you guys to look through this information again, and maybe next month we can present an actual contract, if you please, and enter into a contract with them to go forward with the marketing study and recruitment. The information I handed you today, we talked about, obviously there's kind of two different focals. One is the entire city. On the other one would be specific to the downtown. So the information that was put on your board pack today also has a downtown portion. There are two different projects, so to speak. So this, in talking to them, when they do the downtown, they kind of do a portion of what we already have done or are in the process of doing. So in my conversations with them, she had said it might be worth addressing that once we have completed the Hyatt Palma study. And then see if there's any gaps that they could fill in. So if you look through this study, it's kind of two-pronged. They have a $25,000 fee for a downtown plan, which we're already doing, and then they have an implementation fee. So it's probably, as far as the downtown portion of it goes, it's probably best that we wait until we do the Hyatt Palma. Then we can go back to them with, hey, here's our downtown plan. Is there anything missing? There may be some things that they could add into it. And then we can talk about what that looks like. The other one is purely the entire city. So it's a market research and recruitment for the entire city. And it's not specific to the downtown. Not to say they couldn't recruit somebody to the downtown, but it's not specific to the downtown or any one area. That study is, or that market study is what we talked about last month, and includes the market research data and then the recruitment. They recommend a 3-year plan, but that 3-year plan is $50,000 a year for the next 3 years. At any point in time, we could stop. So if in year 2 we're not happy, we can stop. Or in year 1 we're not happy, we can stop. But that would be kind of the original agreement, would be for a 3-year period of $50,000 per year. I'll let Mike and Tim share any input they have from the meeting that we had with them and what their thoughts are.
Well, I thought it was a good meeting. It was very informative. She did a very good job presenting to us. We had a few questions. I called Jeremy and talked to him today about it, and apparently, did you get this information today?
Yeah.
Okay, after our conversation. So it's relatively new to me, as well as you. So what do we do with this information that you have provided for us today? Do you want, as opposed to just reading through it, do you want us to come talk to you, talk to the mayor, where?
I think there's 2 things you can do at this point. One, I don't have a contract, so I can't present to you, say, I'll
Right.
approve a contract. The contract would be a 3-year, $50,000 a year. They sent a draft contract that I did give you last month, and the exhibit is here. So that Exhibit A is kind of the layout of what they would do. So they're going to do the research, identify the market, retail, trade area, political boundaries, drive times, radius, custom demographics, perform market and retail gap analysis, trade area, conduct retail peer market analysis, the tapestry of lifestyles, profile of the trade area, market segmentation, customize the retail market guide, identify a minimum 30 retail prospects to be targeted, and then update on those retail industry trends, customer demand, so forth. They'll do a real estate analysis, so they'll identify areas that they could go out and market, and then they will do that retail recruitment of those 30 retailers, a minimum of 30 retailers, could be more. At the same time, and here we have the ability to target. So it's not a matter of they're just going to say, here's the 30 retail. We can say, we want these, we don't want those. So that's in there as well. So we would meet with them and basically give them kind of a marching order of who we'd like to see targeted. And if there's something that we wouldn't, we could certainly exclude it. I don't know what that would be. I'm just saying we have that flexibility to do that. So that Exhibit A is really the nuts and the bolts of the contract. So the 50,000 would be that research, and then the recruitment per year for the 3-year period. Like I said, I don't have a contract for you. If you're so inclined, my thought was that I would bring a contract to you at next month's meeting. And then at that point, you can approve or deny it. My thought today was Tim and Mike could fill you in on the conversations and pluses and minuses. If they had any reservations about it, they could share that with you today. If they felt good about it, they could share that with you. And then if you had any questions that I needed to get answered before next month's meeting, I could do that. Otherwise, my intent would be to bring a contract to you next month. You either approve or deny that contract.
Just for information for these folks, after our meeting, I did reach out to the mayor and Jeremy and Tim. I do think it's important that we consider the downtown business district and its future. And in that conversation with Jeremy today, we talked about the upcoming Hyatt Palma study. We certainly don't want an overlap. So we think that perhaps we'll see what Hyatt Palma comes in with. And when does that begin, Mayor? Okay.
That's supposed to be completed by the end of the year, roughly? Will they?
Yeah, I thought it was like in the fall, sometime in the fall, I think they were supposed to have that wrapped up. Yeah.
That took them a little longer.
Like September or something like that.
So whether we get answers about our downtown from Hyatt Palma or through our working with these people.
Retail strategy.
Thank you, retail strategies. We do, in my opinion, need to not overlook our downtown.
But you are thinking Hyatt Palma first, Mike, and then that information they can review and look at to.
Yeah, see what they,
Yeah,
see
you
what they
think
come
that's a
through
good
with,
idea.
and if we feel that it's short of our goal with retail strategies, we can go back to retail strategies and say, hey, we want to expand our out, or if Hyatt Palm comes in with some ideas, we could ask retail strategies to maybe expand on those, take that information and then use that information.
After the meeting, a month or two ago, you were real positive, let's go. Are you still feeling very positive and we need to walk this direction? Seriously consider this?
Well, I
How are you
do, and
feeling?
the nice thing, or the important thing, I think, about these people, retail strategies, is they not only will give us the information, they will go out and recruit and meet, and they have many, many, many contacts that contact them. You know, I don't know exactly how it works. I would assume somebody might call them and say, hey, we want to expand our business in the Midwest. We don't have a footprint there. Retail strategies, do you have anyone you're working with that might be looking for a business like ours? And they could say, well, as a matter of fact, we do. We're working with Warsaw, Indiana, and they could benefit
Something more
from,
so- Okay, good.
so.
Yeah, it's a combination of both, obviously, and then they will take the research that they do, and they'll go out and market that at different trade shows to different entities, saying, hey, you know, here's a market gap in this area. It's in the Midwest. You looking in the Midwest, this is the place you should be looking at. Yeah.
Jeremy, you had, it wasn't negative, but you had some reservations. He was real excited, and you're like, we better be careful here. After meeting with them, how do you feel? What are you thinking?
No pressure.
Yeah. So
I just value your input. and
a
you're not-
number of people have requested that the city do market research. It's not something that we have the capability to do in-house, so the only way to do that is to go outside through a consultant. My feeling is pretty simple. You don't know what you don't know until you know it. So a lot of the research part up front will help us a lot understand what we don't know right now. I mean, I'm not a retail market specialist. I couldn't tell you what we don't have, where our gaps are, or any of that. And so I think having that information is certainly worthwhile. But having that information and doing something with it are two different things.
Right.
So my reservation is only this. Don't go buy information if you don't plan to use it, and if you don't have a strategy to use it. The reason why I brought them to the table, and there are other businesses like them out there, and I've met with two others and talked to a third. I felt like that most of it was the same, same plan, same. I liked the way they kind of laid theirs out, so that's why I presented this one to you. But if you don't go into it with a plan, then you just waste your money buying data. So that's where they come in. That's the plan, that the model they've had and others have, is we're not going to just sell you data, because anybody can do that. And quite frankly, we have bought data before in different entities, not retail-wise, but industry-wise. And that doesn't do you any good unless you have a plan to use it. So they're going to create the plan. They're going to come to us. We're going to say, yeah, this is what we want to go after. So I feel very comfortable in what I'm presenting to you. And will it work or not? I don't know. What I do know is it gives us our best chance to go after these industries, these retailers that we know the community wants, we know the community needs for our growth. So I don't feel like the $150,000 over 3 years is a waste of money, as long as we stick to the plan and be aggressive about it.
150,000 or less if there's some frustration or we're feeling like there
Yeah.
isn't this action
Yeah.
or something
Yeah.
we can do about it.
But that's what
Yeah.
created my excitement, was the fact that they don't just present us the data. They
I like
go to trade shows, they go to symposiums and workshops,
Right.
and they are, Basically, it's like hiring a headhunter to find us what the answers they come back with as to what we need. They will find that for us, because, you know, it's not what we do.
I appreciate both of your comments, helpful for me.
With that, I'm sorry, I have to excuse myself. I have to pick up my wife at the airport. And,
Thanks for
Yeah, thanks for
staying
your
as long
comments.
as you
I have
did.
to.
Appreciate it.
Hey,
Jeremy, I just want to make a few comments about it. I think what I heard and what I saw, it's like going to a developer with a napkin drawing. Doesn't work. You know, you got to have a plan. And having the data from someone who does this and who goes out and actively tries to place businesses makes a ton of sense to me. The one reservation I have is in the downtown area, the businesses that are going to be marketed to our community are, to me, going to be national brands. I don't know what type of opportunity we have in this downtown for national brands, to be quite frank with you. You know, a lot of our business downtown are local brands. They're mom and pops. They're entrepreneurs that have just done great things. Not saying we don't, but I'm not as much in a hurry to spend money on the downtown study as I am maybe look at the retail strategy overall. It's expensive. Obviously, if we get a hit, might pay off. But I think we need to consider the cost. There's an ongoing cost to this thing, correct, for the marketing and
Yeah, so they suggest a 3-year period to see if it works, but we can continue as long as I mean, if at the end of the 3 year we've got 10 new retailers and we're loving what we're accomplishing, then we can continue that relationship at the end of the 3 years. If we've got, you know, a burger shop and a candy store, maybe we say this ain't working for us and cut it off.
Something you've got to understand is that, the reason for a 3-year period is it takes a long time to develop. I mean, it's
Yeah,
gonna
one
take
project,
the
yeah.
first part of the project is identify what we're missing in this city as far as retailers. Secondly, they have to make contacts with those that might be able to fill that gap, and then to attract a good retailer to locate here and get them to build and get through the incentives and all those types of things that we normally do with a new developer. So that takes a lot of time, as you well know from our experience. So it's going to take that longer period of time. It won't be just, you know, pay the $50,000 up front, get some data, and walk away from it.
leave.
Don't think that's, as Jeremy says, you know, that it's not that quick of a solution. And they were very clear about that, and I give them credit for telling it, you know, up front. There were, you know, they did a preliminary identification of our city, and they were saying basically there's $70 million worth of retail sales going outside of this city that could be done here. So we've got a $70 million gap. There's a big return on investment potential here for us to bring. Now, we're going to not going to get $70 million back in retail back into this city, but if we get a portion of that, some large portion of that, then it's really going to pay off big time. That's the gamble. You're going to roll the dice, but you've got facts backing you up. You've got the study up front. You've got contacts that they mentioned with this organization and other retailers that are looking for some potential place to locate or expand. And here in Warsaw, you know, would be we'd be able to present our case to them. So as it goes on like that, but that $70 million it gives you a very large potential return on our investment, even if we had $50,000 a year. I think the mayor's absolutely right. It's going to be, and it's a separate team that comes in for the downtown area. so that, and what retailers are available to, locate in a downtown area. I think the potential return on investment is not as great there. That's my opinion. We have that discussion with them again before we sign anything, obviously. But the cost is almost the same as what,
Yeah, I would think if we were going to go down, and I know Mike's talked a lot about it, and we've discussed this, so I'm not trying to say this now that he's left, but we probably disagree a little bit on this, whereas I'm not as concerned as doing this for the downtown. And like I've told him, I think the way we approach downtown is we create projects that then we can add, that they can go out and market. So if we create a downtown project that has 15,000 square feet of retail space or office space, whatever, they can go out and we can say, here's the potential for when you're talking to those people and you got a restaurant or whatever, here's a 5,000 square foot restaurant space that could go into a mixed use building. That's the way I see as being more successful in terms of the downtown than just trying to market the downtown. I think that becomes more complicated. Now, I'm not opposed to, like I said to him, I'm not opposed to them coming in and maybe we have them come up and present to all of you what they've done in other downtowns and how they've been successful. And making sure that if we go down that route, you're comfortable with what you feel they can accomplish. Because I certainly have my reservations. It's not that I want to exclude the downtown. I don't.
No, not at all.
I want the downtown to be a portion of this. But I think the way we do that is we market projects. We create projects that then we give them the ability to go out and market to those establishments that are looking. I feel like that would be more successful than trying to just broadly market the downtown.
And that's really the point I wanted to make getting up here. I totally agree with that. And it's not that, I think the downtown is somewhat going to drive itself based on these projects, existing businesses, the success we've had down here. I'm more focused on that big picture, retail. Just my last comment, with digital retail, it's such a complicated business now. And the companies that are available, the stores that are available to come in your communities, it's not what you used to think. And for us to sit here and talk like we know who we want and who's going to come, it's a different ballgame now. Margins are smaller. It's down to really, really tight market research, and that's where there's value, I think, in what we're talking about now.
and they'll tell us also what we're lacking in this retail area, whether it be restaurant or clothing or something, but they'll also tell us what we're already saturated in. Is it clothing or restaurants or whatever it happens to be? I don't know what that is yet, but.
I mean, we've had enough experience with retailers that we thought should come here that have said, no, you don't have the draw, the market area for us to be profitable. So, there's wants, there's needs, and there's that practical side of what fits with our market area. And that it was a good presentation. I think they're going to give us some good overall market information on retail. But I'd be guarded about the benefit of doing something downtown.
Yeah, and the other point I would like to make is this would be a new vendor for us to be using for this type of purpose. And we put the priorities on where the best return on investment is going to be, obviously. And if we get some deliverables from them for the city as a whole, we can then look more closely at using them for the downtown area as well. I feel more comfortable with
Top of high
that.
home, yeah.
Right, exactly. So it's a lot more complicated than just hiring somebody to do the plan, but at least they collect the data, tell us where we're at, what we're missing, and then go after those areas, those that we're lacking in. And that to me sound like a really good plan, and then I'll be looking at the numbers obviously for the return on that investment. Anything else you want to add?
I appreciate the comments, and then it seems that the diversity in the group that talked to him, I like it. What I was hearing, a month ago, all of you had different perspectives, but it looks like let's keep looking and maybe walk this direction.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think we were all very impressed with their presentation. But I'm cautious about, I've heard a lot of good sales presentations, and then the deliverables were not there.
No action.
Return on investment.
The return,
That's,
action plan.
that's,
Yeah.
that's my bread and butter. So,
We are fortunate, we have a community that attracts a certain level of retail.
Mhm.
So we got that going for us.
yes.
But looking at the sophistication of retail, I'm somewhat inclined to at least look at the broader community and how that might work.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, any other questions before we, so hopefully we'll have a contract, and some more additional information. Take a look at the information that was attached to the bottom of the board pack, so you get a better idea of what we're looking at. But, this is basically the presentation they gave us. You'll see that on there. And we've had some really good discussions in that regard. Anything else you'd like to?
No, I think from me, what I'll do is I'll just have them prepare a contract for next month. In between that time frame, if something pops into your head, you have a question you want me to ask or give me an answer for, just shoot me an email or call me and I'll try to get that answered beforehand. At some point, and I know Mike will bring it up again, I think as we get a little bit further along, maybe with what they're doing and presenting, if we move ahead with them, then we can go back to the downtown portion, look at the Hyatt Palma and have them look at it. And then maybe get them here to give everyone a presentation on if we're gonna go down that road. Because I do think downtown's gonna be a real challenge from a marketing standpoint. I think we're probably better off with targeted marketing, but I'm not opposed to it. I know Mike wants it. So we can get them here and give you a spiel, and you can all decide what's in the best interest, rather than us going back and forth on what might.
I really think we'll have a better idea once we have the Hyatt Palma.
But I do think
Report.
I think Tim hit the biggest to me is, if you're gonna try a new process, make sure your odds of being successful are at its highest. And this first step gives us the best chance at being. If we start with just little, that's gonna be a lot more challenging than if we look at the whole and say, okay, let's start here first, and then we can move down to the smaller, pare it down to see how successful it can be. But I would hate to just try to go for the peg in the middle when there's a lot of other opportunities around that first.
But be aware, we're not at all ignoring the downtown.
No.
But going after the bigger price.
Steps.
Price.
Steps.
Yeah.
Prioritizing
Yeah, the
our
steps.
steps in that regard. Okay,
I like it. Thanks.
anything else?
That's all I got.
Okay.
I move to adjourn.
Mr. Gross moves to adjourn, and Mr. Clemens seconds that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members of the press.
Bill, this was the longest redevelopment commission ever, sorry.
Almost.
Yeah, almost.
Wait till
Getting pretty.
budgets come out.
Do we have stuff to sign?
Yes, I do.
As Ernie Wiggins said, no good deed goes unpunished.
Thanks.